Hi everyone! In today's video, I want to show you how I did this encapsulated flower design. It was actually really fun to do, and I'm going to use the flowers that I showed you on my haul video. Some of them are going to be pink, yellow, purple, and I'm going to use some green leaves as well. But before we start, make sure that you prep the nails very well. And since I have a plastic hand, all I can do is file them. And now that everything is done, we can start getting the form ready. You guys know that what I usually do is some cuts on the form that are gonna serve me as a guide. I recommend you to do this step always because honestly, it does really help me to create the design that I'm looking for. And since I'm doing encapsulated nails, I don't know if you guys have seen my last video, but I'm gonna do kind of the same thing. I'm gonna start doing a very thin layer with some crystal clear acrylic powder. And this is gonna serve me as a base to apply anything that I wanna encapsulate. In this case, it's gonna be dried flowers. In this step, what you have to make sure is that everything is well covered. Now we can start applying some flowers. And the way that we're gonna encapsulate them is actually pretty easy. All you have to do is make a small pearl and then put it wherever you feel like it's gonna look good. And then afterwards, apply the dried flower on top of it. What you have to do in this step is push it down, and the way I like to do that is that I use my brush. You guys can also use a plastic, just like I showed you before, but I feel like with a brush is much easier. The reason why we want to push down the flowers is that we want them to be as flat as possible. Otherwise, what can happen is that there can be some bumps left, and that's actually gonna make it harder for us to encapsulate the nails. So in this step, make sure that you push it down as much as possible. I don't know if you guys noticed, but I actually applied the bigger flowers first, and then I put the smaller ones because I didn't want the nail to be too covered up. I wanted it to have some transparent places, if that makes any sense. And now that all of the flowers are applied, we can start encapsulating this nail. And the way that we're gonna do that is that we're gonna do bigger acrylic beads, and we don't want it to be too solid because we want it to be able to move it around and make sure that everything is well covered. And of course, just like always, we're gonna apply some pressure on the sides because what this is gonna do is that it's gonna make our nail look more natural. And this is how the first nail looks like. Now we can start getting the second one ready. And this one is going to be a little bit different because I'm gonna do a type of French nail. Instead of applying white, we're gonna encapsulate some flowers. To do that, I'm gonna use pink acrylic. And here, what you wanna do is kind of create a very small almond nail. But the most important part is that you want it to be as symmetrical as possible. To do that, I'm gonna file the sides until everything is even. And while you guys are doing that, make sure that everything is symmetrical because sometimes we can end up filing one side too much than the other. And now that everything is done, I'm gonna start applying this first layer, just exactly like we did on the first nail. The only difference is that it's going to be smaller. Now I can start applying the flowers, but here what I'm trying to do is that I'm trying to mix bigger flowers with smaller ones. I feel like this combination makes the nail look better. And also, I'm gonna try to make all of the nails be a little bit different. Even though we're using the same products, I don't want the nails to look too much the same. I feel like that makes the design be a little bit boring. Just like I told you, first I'm gonna apply the bigger ones, and then I'm gonna use the smaller ones, like the white flowers, the purple ones, to kind of fill up everything. Now that everything is in place, we can start encapsulating what's left of the nail. And I know that it can seem a little bit difficult since these are French nails, but the process is the exact same one. The one thing that I do different is that I put some of this acrylic on top of the pink one, just to make sure that everything is gonna stay in place. I know that it looks a little bit weird, but once we're done with all of the nails and we file them, everything is gonna look even. In this third nail, I'm also going to be doing this type of French design, but here I'm gonna tell you more step by step so you guys can understand it a little bit better. The first thing that we have to do is create this type of almond shaped nail. And to do that, I'm gonna apply the first bead between the natural nail and the form. Once we're done doing that, we're gonna end up covering everything up. And in this step, make sure that everything is smooth and ready for us to file. Like I told you before, I was gonna teach you how to do this without a form. And what you have to do is take off the form very carefully because we're still gonna use it afterwards. And now we can start filing the sides. And here what I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna make sure that everything is as symmetrical as possible, and I'm gonna keep filing until it's the shape that I want it to be. And this is how it looks like. Now we can put the form back on, and here you have to make sure that it's completely symmetrical and just the way it was, otherwise it can end up looking crooked or a little bit weird. Now we can start applying the first layer of crystal acrylic, and remember that this is gonna serve us as a base for us to encapsulate the flowers with. I'm going to start applying the flowers, and I don't know if you guys are able to tell, but I'm gonna put the biggest one right in the center because I want it to be the one that stands out the most. And then I'm gonna use the little ones, the purple ones and the yellow ones as a filler, just like I told you before. Here, what you have to remember is that the acrylic bit that we put on is going to eventually dry, so you have to be a little bit fast on how you apply the flowers. Otherwise, the acrylic is going to dry and the flowers are just gonna fall off. Now that the flowers are put on the nail, the only thing left to do is encapsulate. And since this is also a French nail, it's going to be done exactly like I told you on the last one. Here, what you have to make sure is that not only everything is well covered up, but a little tip that I told you before is to put some of this acrylic on top of the pink. This is gonna give more strength to the nail, and once we file it off, it's gonna look just the way it's supposed to, so don't worry. And of course, always apply some pressure on the sides. And now we're going to do the last one for this video. And here we're actually gonna do a very thin layer of acrylic, but it's gonna be done all over the nail. We're not gonna do French nails anymore. This one is going to be just like the first one that I showed you in this video. Now I'm going to start applying the flowers that I think are gonna look good. And just like I told you before, I tried to start with the bigger ones because these ones serve me as a guide to know where I have to apply the tiny flowers. Because I like to use the tiny flowers as this type of a filler. Remember that when you guys are doing this step, it's very important to push down the flowers so they are as flat as possible, because otherwise it can be a little bit hard to encapsulate the nail. And just like I told you before, when you guys are applying the beads, make sure that you're a little bit quick because you don't want it to dry too fast. Otherwise, the flowers are just not gonna stick in and it's not gonna end up looking the way you want to. Now that everything is done, all we have to do is encapsulate them. And remember that we want these beads to be bigger and a little bit more liquid, because if they're too solid, it's gonna be a little bit hard to apply it. And here I'm going to be doing exactly like I told you all throughout this video. This is how this last nail ends up looking. Now all of the nails are completely done and the only thing left to do is file them. Remember that I like to start filing the sides of the nail, and since these are square nails, I'm going to make sure that the file is completely straight. Now that we have all of the sides filed, the only thing left to do is file the surface, and I'm gonna use my e-file for this step. Here I'm gonna file all of the nails just like I would do on a normal one. What you want to make sure here is that everything is even and the nail has to be as thin as possible. We don't want them to look too chunky. And I'm also going to file the French nails exactly like I would do on the first one. And this is how the filed nails look like. Now everything is done except we have to add some shine to make them look a lot prettier. Remember that when we file nails, we have to clean them off because there's usually some dust left behind. And to finish up this design, we're gonna be adding some top coat. And this is actually my favorite part of doing encapsulated nails, because like you guys can tell, it makes everything show even more, and I love the shine that this top coat adds. I think that it's so pretty. Please make sure that you guys don't miss this step, because like you guys can tell, it makes the crystal acrylic show even more, and I just love how the design ends up looking. Remember that when you guys apply top coat, you have to cure it, and mine takes about 1 minute. And this is how the design looks like. I love how it turned out, and I think that for the summer it looks really pretty. I hope you guys liked this video. If you did, please subscribe and like it. And thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye!